Would you like to have a good score and be well on your way to the unlocks you want instead of having to use a grenade launcher to get kills? Well, you can, with the power of tactics. If you're watching this video, you're probably looking for a way to get a lot of kills with a certain weapon and are thinking about playing Team Deathmatch to expedite matters, probably for farming unlocks. This video will be covering possibly one of the best maps for unlock farming, Operation Locker Team Deathmatch mode. But there are rules. The most important thing for grinding with any individual weapon or class on this map, and this is a rule of thumb for all Team Deathmatch maps, is to have a good spawning location. On Operation Locker especially, it's common on high-population Team Deathmatch for the map to split into sections with little other than grenade launcher spam going on for the point farm. If you're looking for something harder, like, say, pistol kills, it's best if you play Recon and carry a spawn beacon, or if you can't use that class for the weapon you want, team up with a Recon buddy in a squad. The objective is, of course, to plant a beacon somewhere on the other team's half of the map, so you have a good location to attack the enemy team from. This will give you the element of surprise, which can turn any weapon in the game into an overpowered one. But you have to be careful. If you plant your beacon in the wrong spot, or tip your hand at where you're attacking from, they'll find your beacon and destroy it. Rule number 1. Thou shalt set your squad to private and only allow in people you know. Teammates in Team Deathmatch mode are exceptionally stupid. Most random squad mates will spawn on the beacon and immediately attack the first enemy they see, often with an unsuppressed weapon being discharged nearby your spawn beacon. Remember, motion sensor balls, unlocked early on by most Recon players, will ping the location of a spawn beacon, and if the leech following you around gets one thrown in his direction, suddenly the entire enemy team knows where your spawn beacon is. The single best defense your spawn beacon has is to be in a location that no one will think to throw a motion sensor near, preferably back behind the enemy spawn area. As such, it is essential that you use a suppressed weapon when possible, and more importantly, move away from the spawn beacon before killing anyone, and move from the spot you got a kill from immediately after securing a kill. Remember, whenever you kill someone, they follow you around as a ghost for several seconds before respawning. So if you kill someone and are on the way to a location you want to hide a spawn beacon at, make it look like you're going in a different direction or doing something else for a few seconds after you've killed your opponent. I've been able to watch people plant their spawn beacons as ghosts several times because they forgot this fact. And remember, teammates are highly imitative in Battlefield 4, but not smart enough to imitate correctly. If you have a couple teammates following you around and they decide to plant beacons where yours is, it may be a good idea to change location. High-population Operation Locker is generally split between the east and west sides, with control of the outdoors area changing hands sometimes. Once in a while, a base switch may be triggered by a rapid amount of deaths from one team, followed by a couple people from the other being in the spawn, and that may trigger some backspawning and result in the sides changing hands. It's important to keep an eye out for when this is happening so that you know to rush to the appropriate location and be ready to plant a new spawn beacon. It can take some practice to know when you should change beacon locations and when you shouldn't, so sometimes you're just going to have to take your best guess and hope you're right. Remember that if you go on a killing spree and kill 7 or 8 people, you may open the door for a rush of your teammates, and you could single-handedly trigger a base switch, making your delicately placed spawn beacon now useless. It's best to choose where you're going to collect kills from more carefully and avoid wiping out large groups of people that are nearby a group of your teammates, such as near the outdoor entrance on the western side of the map. Again, this can take practice. Check your map often and be ready to run to a new location while it's easy to switch sides during the process of a base switch before territory lines are drawn again. Though, if you are a Recon player and also have a Recon buddy, you can just have a beacon in each half of the map and avoid this issue. Not everyone will have that benefit, though. Near the eastern half of the map, you should know you can duck behind the rocks in the outdoors area to plant a spawn beacon, as well as hide one in the tunnel on the sublevel. But generally speaking, if you're given the choice of which team you want to be on, you'll want to be on the team that owns the eastern half of the map. That's because the western half is easier to infiltrate and has better locations for spawn beacons. The western half of the map can be infiltrated from outside. The rock face near the western entrance can be rock climbed, and most people don't know that. And there's often a few snipers sitting up on those rocks, which will often be vulnerable. The second rock face behind it can also be climbed, and you can run through the out-of-bounds area to get behind the western spawn and plant a spawn beacon inside. Do note that you cannot leave this area without blowing out a wall. I recommend one which doesn't grant vision so people won't see you descending from your hidden alcove above. If you don't have C4, you can destroy one of the walls by shooting the exploding barrel. But if you've infiltrated through one of the tunnels instead of from outside, you may be better off planting a beacon in the back tunnel, getting yourself killed, grabbing some C4, and respawning as quickly as you can to relocate your beacon in a more discreet location, now that you can destroy a wall. On the note of the outside area, in some places you can climb on the rocks in the out-of-bounds zone to potentially pass by enemy defenses, or stealthily prone-crawl your way behind enemy lines. Be careful though, if you fall too far there's no way back up. If you're joining a server and the round is just starting, you should know that base switches are common in the first minute of the game. I recommend, if you spawned on the western side at the start of the game, blowing out a wall with C4 and planting a beacon hidden behind, then respawning just in case a base switch is triggered early on. Once you die and respawn, you'll have another beacon in your backpack and be able to change its location if you find yourself in the enemy team's half of the map and the early game base trade didn't happen. If you're on the eastern half of the map, I recommend planting a beacon in the sub-level, but there just aren't as many well-hidden locations on the eastern half of the map, so it's preferable to be attacking the western side. Next rule. Thou shalt use the smoke grenades. The key to getting the top score on this map, with whatever weapon it is you want unlocks for, is to obtain the element of surprise. It will make any weapon with any attachment overpowered, and thus make it a lot easier for you to do your grind, and possibly get the top score with a weak weapon. I've got the top score on 64 player with nothing more than a pistol, a carbine, and a knife, and have had no need to use any grenade launcher. Surprise and stealth will turn any weapon into a streak machine. Smoke grenades will help you get into position. Sometimes you just won't have the good fortune of being on the eastern team, or getting to infiltrate from outside. Sometimes your team will suck and have so little territory control that you're spawn-trapped. You can use smoke grenades to block out a hallway in order to run through it, or past it, and it will greatly increase your chances of survival. Flares in areas you plan to run through can also work, as people don't want to stare directly at a flare, and if you're planning on running by it, it may guarantee you a couple of seconds of enemies looking away. On 64-player mode, these will sometimes be your only options for infiltrating into the enemy half of the map. If you're trying to infiltrate early on, remember to use C4 to blow out walls so that you can travel through areas near the center of the map before all the walls are blown out and they're filled with campers. This will sometimes be your only way to infiltrate from the west to the east early on. The central rooms often have walls that can be destroyed with a rocket or a single brick of C4, but once several of them are open, it's very common for people to camp behind the debris. Next rule. Thou shalt use the Spec Ops Recon upgrade path, which starts you off with stealth. When infiltrating, thou shalt only sprint when there appears to be risk from moving slower. Instead of fearing being knifed, thou shalt drop motion balls at your feet to detect someone sprinting towards you if you have them. It's okay to sprint when you're concerned someone will see you and shoot you, but remember, it could be showing a big orange arrow on the enemy minimap. When you're past the lines and don't need to be running around, try to be a little more discreet. If thou cometh across a camping sniper who has not seen you, thou shalt not knife him until thou hast planted the spawn beacon, for thou dost not want to draw attention to thyself before the time is right. Thou shalt resist the blinding urge for points, and come back to kill the camper later. And thou shalt liketh, shareth this video with your friends who need unlocks, and subscribe. And I'll even throw in a bonus. There's some even better spawn beacon locations that I haven't shown you, and no, they're not the ones commonly seen in other videos that involve glitching under the map. If this video gets 400 likes, and at least 20 shares before January 1st, I'll make a video showing not just the good beacon locations that you've seen, but the best locations that you haven't seen. I'll see you next time. Later, YouTube.